Good morning, friends. So, what you're about to hear is the new episode where I actually get a bona fide celebrity to come on and talk to me for a little while. His name's Leigh MacInnis. He's currently he was in town promoting a documentary on SwearNet called Tripping with Leigh, which I highly recommend to everybody. It's about 45 minutes long. You can sit down, you can watch it. It's a pretty intense story about a man deciding that he wants to try all drugs, and then realizing that that's a bad idea and going the spiritual route. Big shout out to SwearNet for giving him a chance to do the documentary. I thought it was absolutely awesome. I've watched it 4 or 5 times myself. So if you get a chance, please go and check that out. Also, I wanted to give a big, huge shout out and thank you to both Higher Limits and South Detroit downtown. The guys at Higher Limits were actually the only reason I was able to talk to Leigh. They were having him there for a performance, and one of the guys there was able to get us an interview, and it was absolutely fantastic. Thanks to also Homer here. He was the one that set it all up. He's the goddamn best, I tell you guys. And then South Detroit actually gave us the area to record with Leigh, so that way we could have a nice quiet spot where we could talk to him. So a huge big thank you and shout out to both Higher Limits and South Detroit. Anybody listening, you get a chance, go check either one of those places out. South Detroit has some great food, some great drinks, some great people, and Higher Limits, if you've listened to my podcast, you know it's just an awesome place to go relax and get your smoke on. So if you happen to head on over there, tell them that Berkner sent you, and have yourself a good time at either one of those fine establishments. So show them some love, bring them some money, and go have yourself a good time. So without further ado, here is Leigh MacInnis and I talking about his trip to Peru and the experience he had out there. All right, guys, have fun. And we're live. Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the next installment of the Berkner and Friends podcast. Today, everybody... Oh, fuck, today do I have a show for you. I got a bona fide fucking celebrity to sit across the table from me and talk to me. You may know him from the new SwearNet documentary, Tripping with Leigh. This is Leigh MacInnis. Hello, Leigh. How you doing, brother?
Bad. How are you, man?
Oh, fuck, I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. So I got to say, as I mentioned earlier when I first started talking to you, that... I believe that what you're doing with this podcast is really, or not the podcast, sorry, the documentary is really important. For a long time, the whole idea that anybody that does drugs is a loser, can't be successful, any other form of takedown has been around for a very long time. And you're pretty much a good example of somebody who can be successful and can do drugs and can be good about doing it, like respectful and responsible about doing what you're doing.
Yeah, well, it's all about moderation.
Yeah,
for most things, and of course, some things you should just not get into
whatsoever. That was actually something I wanted to ask you with Tripping with Leigh. The whole concept is a man that wants to go and try out all the different things of the world, but then you had a stroke at one point during all of this, and then it kind of, from what I felt watching the documentary, it evolved more from kind of party time into a man trying to figure out what he's all about and what he wants from the world. Yeah, well,
yes, definitely. And once I started reading into a lot of the stuff I would be doing, I realized it's not about the party, it's more about the spiritual journey and finding yourself and expanding your mind. So I kind of went with that angle, and you'll see that throughout the first documentary, Tripping with Leigh Peru, that I kind of started out in Lima, partying my face off, and I went, you can slowly see a progression into like a more of a spiritual awakening.
Before you started this documentary, were you a religious or spiritual person to begin with?
I wasn't religious. I don't really agree with any religion, but I am spiritual.
Okay.
So,
well,
I believe there's a greater power.
Okay, yeah. Without spoiling anything about the documentary, because I really think everybody should get out and watch this, you can really tell by the end of it that you did pick up like a spirituality from the whole, especially with the ayahuasca situation. You picked up a spirituality from it, and I gotta say it was amazing. Like watching it from the outside, and ayahuasca has always been something I've wanted to dip my toes in a little bit and try it out.
You can't. That's the thing. You can't really dip your toes in it. That's what I thought I was doing. And when I drank it and it started hitting me, it was just the most powerful thing I've ever done. It was so overwhelming.
Well, when you're watching the documentary, you can see the moment there where you're like starting to try and vomit a little bit, and then you're like, nope. And it turns into this amazing / terrifying / absolutely interesting thing to watch, at least from the outside. I imagine from the inside it was fucking amazing.
When I was looking back at the footage in the editing room, what I seen on film was a lot different than the experience I was having. So your body does kind of one thing and your mind's doing something else. So I was really, I don't know, just it's hard to explain. Like I was connecting with the shaman and on a different level, and I started actually singing the Icaros with him that he was chanting. And
that was a question I wanted to ask too. During the documentary, when you're full into your trip with the ayahuasca, he starts singing and he does like these different vocal. Did that help, or was it?
Yeah, it actually does.
Helps you ground it out.
Yeah, and it kind of keeps you connected.
Well, I noticed in the documentary when he would start is when you were really starting to get a little crazy on the ground, and from like an outside perspective it looks terrifying, but knowing what I know, at least, and I have personal use with LSD and mushrooms and all this, so I have a little bit of an idea of the psychedelic effects that can have. But watching it, and like I could tell that, okay, he's in a trip, he's okay, but from an outside perspective it could be pretty scary.
Yeah.
One thing I really liked was your cameraman Jesse. That situation with what was that?
Yopo. Yeah.
That was quite an interesting, and to see him and the other gentleman whose name I'm escaping me right now, who was singing.
Singing?
Yeah, there was a guy who was like opera singing and like sitting on the ground. Jesse was rolling around, and Daniel, that was it. Yeah. Daniel's singing, and it's kind of crazy to see they were both on the same drug, right? So it was the difference in buzz between
Daniel
the two of them
done it several times.
Oh, had he? Okay.
So he was kind of
knew what to expect from the whole situation.
Yeah, I think he was more seasoned in that stuff.
So, was it difficult to get people on to the whole idea of doing this documentary? Like the whole idea of somebody,
Like, it took 5 years just to get the first one done. And if Mike Robb and like Swearinut didn't produce it, it probably would have
never got anywhere.
They were influential in helping with all that. And of course, Chris and Jesse that come down to film with me, they were a big help. Everybody was. Like, it just came together at the right time in my life. I don't think I could have did something like this 20 years ago. I probably wouldn't have left the jungle.
Stayed forever.
I'd be in one of those videos where they find a new tribe and
there's a guy sitting on a throne with a giant beard and hair. So after the stroke, did people immediately like want you to stop doing the documentary? Was it a big question about whether or not you were going to continue to do?
Yeah, some people definitely said like, are you still going to continue with this? We're worried, but I talked to some people and some doctors, and
in the documentary they mention an extra vein in your brain. So I was really lucky there. Like a fucking mutant superpower.
A lot of stuff I used to be on when I was younger, chemical based. That I just can't do now.
Just stay away from completely.
Yeah, definitely.
By the way,
keep it natural now.
Your mother is fucking amazing. That lady, she is absolutely awesome. I fell in love with her watching the documentary. She's an absolutely awesome lady. Just let her know that some random dude from Windsor, Ontario thinks she's the fucking shit.
Right on, I will.
So, over the course of your years doing drugs, have you found a favorite?
I like to call them spiritual medicines.
Spiritual medicines. Okay, I like that. I'm going to use that.
They're medicines.
Was there a spiritual medicine that you found that you enjoyed the most, or that maybe gave you the best euphoric outlook afterwards.
Yeah, well, it was. See, growing up, I always used it for a different purpose. It was a party.
Yeah.
You know, it was to party and
just have a good time, get away from life.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, later on, like when I was doing the trip with Leigh and trying to get it together, that's, you know, I just took my outlook now is different.
Completely different, yeah.
Luckily, knock on wood, I'm not the animal I was.
You used to be,
ago.
Yeah.
And I do have to watch because I did take a stroke. I can't be out there
going fucking
doing
nuts.
A lot of the shit I used to do. Right?
Yeah.
I won't go into detail, but
yeah, no, I get you.
But yeah, like I try to keep it natural now. Everything I've done throughout my life was done for, I don't know, it's like a different purposes or.
Yeah, well, as you
know, I really like mushrooms, for instance, but I'm not. It's not something I do often.
Well, it's not something you're doing for the high, right? You're doing it for the connectivity of it all, right?
Yeah, and I just find it does expand your mind and it opens you up to new ideas and you take a different outlook on everything, really.
I'm glad you touched on that because there's something I've heard of before. They refer to it as ayahuasca enlightenment, and a lot of times DMT, same thing. It's the enlightenment. Did you get that after your ayahuasca experience? Like, did you come out? Joe Rogan says it very well, where he says that basically it's like your mind's a fucking computer, and you hit reset, and when it reloads, all that old bullshit that you were worried about is in a folder that says "fuck this shit," and you don't worry about it anymore. You have a whole new outlook on life. Did you experience that from the ayahuasca?
I did it. Yes, you do get that. It's definitely, it does change your outlook. And for any addicts, if you're trying to kick a shitty habit, just go to the jungle and do something so powerful and enlightening and scary that it's just going to scare the shit out of you to the point where you never want to do anything fucked up ever again.
I actually really like that advice. The show has an undertone of addiction therapy, and like I mentioned earlier, I'm a recovered addict myself. I actually use cannabis myself to kick. I was a crack cocaine and prescription medication addict.
Yeah.
So I use cannabis to kick it myself. But it's been a few years since I've done anything harder than cannabis. But I do want to say one thing I've wanted to try for a long time was DMT. Have you had a chance to try that out?
I didn't do the actual smokable form of it. I only did the ayahuasca.
The ayahuasca.
The active ingredient.
Yeah, it's DMT. There's 3 different types, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was enough for me. I ended up doing it 3 times.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't going to do it the 3rd time because the 2nd time I was more freaked out than the first, because the first time I was kind of in a different consciousness. For the 2nd time, I was still kind of grounded, but the hallucinations or whatever you want to call them, connecting, was so lucid and like real that it just freaked me out. And I wasn't going to do it again, but they talked me into it.
How was the 3rd time?
The 3rd time, once I let go of that fear, is when I got that overwhelming wave of emotions. And it was weird because the 3rd time, once I got that and got that message of forgiveness and why I was there, forgive myself, forgive people, I just kind of let go of, like you mentioned Joe Rogan, everything in the past.
Yeah, just gets rid of it.
Yeah, and my buzz was over in an hour and a half. Like once I got
cleared all that shit out,
from the ayahuasca, it was like it was done, and I was kind of given a sense that I was finished at that point.
And you were all good.
The Yopo afterwards.
What was it like, speaking of the Yopo, watching your friend Jesse, and like, were you worried at any point for him during that? Was it, because it seems pretty intense, right?
At points I was kind of, I did want to help him and stuff, but her medicine man Ian, he kind of said you got to leave him. He's doing his own thing. He's fine.
What's it like dealing with those shaman? There's a whole lot of like voodoo around the whole idea of shaman and medicine men, right? Like, did you get any of that feeling of like these guys are bullshitting me or anything like that? Or did you like truly feel like they're trying to help you through what?
Yeah, they were genuinely. They're there to help. The ones I met, you have to watch it. There's some real horror stories from
all over the place.
Well,
yeah,
from all over the place. But as long as you're, I had some really good people down there that I met, and it was a great experience for me. And I often wondered if it's something I could do again.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I have to, but now I got that. How would it be different next time?
Yeah, so there's always that curiosity, right? The message change. Well, just like as you were saying earlier, as we get older, our use of spiritual medicine changes from party time to coping to spirituality. We're the same with your ayahuasca buzz. You never know. Maybe when you go back in 10 years, you'll have a whole new experience, right? So, one last thing I wanted to touch on, I'll let you get up to your show. The beginning of the documentary, you do salvia with your mother somewhere in Canada, I'm not sure where. What was your feeling on salvia? Because I fucking hated it. I could not. I did it, and I've tried it twice to give it a second chance. And like I said earlier, I've done lots of different psychedelics, but it was like a whole different, like I wasn't in my body anymore. It was a whole weird fucking thing. Is that similar to what the ayahuasca kind of buzz would be? Or
yes, yeah. Only last longer. It might be a little more powerful than salvia.
It terrified me. I gotta admit,
it
smoked my bowl and
you get that in tune with your third eye or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call it, can be frightening. So anybody that's listening that would be interested in trying ayahuasca, you have to be ready, mentally, spiritually. A lot of people are searching to let go of a lot of their problems when they go there, so they're going to be faced with all of them when they do it. It's like well,
on the documentary, there was one woman there who mentioned her brother had committed suicide, and it had helped her get over his suicide.
Yeah, so it is healing. It is a medicine.
But you got to be prepared for what's going to come down. I think that might have been because
anybody that's done mushrooms or acid, like if you're going down expecting to get that type of buzz, it's
not the same.
Different. It's a powerful thing, but it's helped me and it's helped a lot of people. I talked with one of the shamans down there, and he cured cancers. Like he's really good at what he does, and he's helped a lot of people, and that's what the documentary Tripping with Leigh is about, is helping people.
Well, it's definitely something that needs to be looked into, and like I said earlier, I think that what you're doing is fantastic, and hopefully it brings a lot more attention to these different spiritual medicines and especially herbal medicines and stuff like that. I appreciate you being on the show. I'll let you get upstairs to Higher Limits to get your show on.
Higher Limits.
Shout out to Higher Limits. Shout out to South Detroit for letting us record down here, and shout out to Swearnet. Thanks a lot, Leigh. I appreciate you having on.
Thank you so much, man.
Be careful. Everybody remember, be kind.